Hi again, welcome back to my shed. This is episode 4 of my first timer's guide to the Scottish 6 day trial. This one's going to be on sort of preparing the bike and what all needs to go into that. Thanks again for the feedback on the previous episode on what to wear. I didn't realize at the time that not mentioning socks was going to be quite such a controversial subject. The reason I didn't mention socks is basically because it doesn't matter what you wear, your feet are going to be wet. So I just go with my usual setup. But anyway, it proved to be quite a few comments on that one. So thanks for everybody for the feedback. Like I said, this is sort of bike preparation. So there's a few things I'll say just before I take you over to the bike and sort of show you what I do. All of the importers provide very good assistance over the course of the week. So I would highly recommend, and I don't think anybody doesn't register for it, but I would highly recommend that you do register for it. They will provide a bike stand, tools, an airline. If you need a wheel changed, if you need a tire changed, then they'll do all that sort of thing for you. Air filters, all that sort of stuff. They'll wash them, bring them back to you, and really just smooths out the end of the day. Sometimes, it can just be a relief when you get back and you can just sort of not literally just hand the bike to them, but you get a little bit of help. Sometimes you need it. Mostly it's the importers that provide that assistance. So usually around the end of March, start of April time, is when the registration comes out for that. But I'm pretty sure if you contacted any of them now, if you know you've got your entry, I'm sure they'll take your details. So the only one I think that isn't provided by an importer is the Montesa assistance, which is provided by Mickey Oates Motorcycles. They're based in Glasgow or somewhere around that area. So that they do the Montesa in conjunction with the factory truck. So I'll move across to the bike. I'm just going to go through from front to back, and I might mention some things which are so basic. You'd be thinking, why would you not do that? But I'm going to just mention everything. I don't really want to leave anything out. So we'll go over to the bike and we'll get started. Okay, so this is the bike that I'll be riding in Scotland. It's a 2021 TRS 1R. Trying to think of what the sort of best way to do this is it start at the front, start at the back, but I think what I'll do is I'll just start with the most basic stuff, which might be very obvious to people, but it's basically just common sense. So I'll start with that. So we'll start with tires. I use one front tire and 2 rear tires for the week. Some guys use 3 rear tires and change it every 2 days. I do 3 days on a tire, and it seems to work okay. In terms of the front tire, I run a slightly heavier duty tube. There are a couple of heavy duty tubes on the market. Michelin make one, which I find is a little bit too heavy. I used it once and I just didn't like the way it made the front of the bike feel. It felt sort of sluggish, or it just didn't seem to react in the same way. But again, that may not have been the tube in the tire. That could have been the tube holding the handlebar. So that's what I do in terms of the front tire. New wheel bearings fitted, front and rear. New brake pads, and a set of pads has always lasted me the week, but I do tend to just throw the ones that I've taken out into the rucksack and just carry them around. It's for all the weight. You might as well be looking at them rather than for them. That's pretty much that for the sort of front wheel tire. Rear wheel, I use 2 tyres, like I said. I don't change the tyre. I have a spare wheel, which has the other tyre on it, basically. So I just, on a Wednesday night or on a Thursday morning, then all I have to do is change a wheel. And then that tyre, I'll maybe get it turned, and then that'll be a good spare to have for the rest of the week. Again, changing the wheel bearings, changing the brake pads, new sprocket, front and rear sprockets, new chain. On the chain, and I think I mentioned this maybe in the backpack video, I don't just go with the chain absolutely brand new. I use it maybe once for a practice session or whatever, just before I would head away, and that just takes the initial stretch, out of it, and saves you sort of having to tension it a lot on the first day, or just having to ride with a really slack chain or whatever. But so that's wheels and tires. I also, sorry, I forgot to mention, I also have a spare front wheel with a new tire on it as well, and it'll have new bearings and whatever. But I just use that as a spare. I don't really intend on using that unless I absolutely have to. Things like headstock bearings, I would clean and re-grease, rebuild that. Also with the suspension linkage. And what I would say there is, if there's any sort of, if you've a doubt that maybe there is a slight bit of play in one of the bearings, then just change it. Don't try and go the whole week with it, because they do take a bit of a hammering for whatever it is, 100 miles a day or whatever. So I would tend to do that. Swing arm bearings don't really tend to wear out, or unless you don't look after them. But I will say the TRS linkages seem to be really, really good. I mean, I sort of just keep up with regular maintenance, and again with the swing arm bearings and stuff, and I've never had an issue. They've been really, really good the whole time. Obviously, you'll change your gearbox oil. Most people will run some sort of protectors. There are carbon ones or plastic. Fork guards, engine cover guards. I've got the flywheel cover, I've got the clutch cover, and I've also got a water pump protector on that side as well. And TRS, again, really good, comes with the frame guards there as standard. And I'm also running swing arm guards too. Excuse me. On this bike, I have fitted a CSP bash plate, and the reason I've done that is it's just a little bit wider at the front here where the flywheel cover is, and also on the water pump side. It's a little bit wider than the standard one. It just affords a little bit more protection to those casings. That's really the only reason I do that. Carburation, the only thing I'm going to say on carburation is speak to your dealer or importer about what potential changes you may have to make to the carburation. You might have to lift the needle, you may need to change the air screw setting, or maybe even a jet or two. But that can be specific to a particular make and model. So I would advise you just to get advice from your dealer or the importer on that. And I will also put a link. I'll share it, either it'll be here or here on the screen at the end. A link to a video, one of the vlogs that BDM did, where they strip and rebuild a Kane carburetor, and it's really good. It's a really sort of comprehensive video, so there's no point in me going over it again. I'll just put the link wherever. Other than that, I put stainless steel bolts rather than the pins in the foot peg. It's just a belt and braces thing again, really. And I carry a spare, like I said, in the backpack previously. Other than that, very little sort of mechanically going on. Not too much else. Electrics, again, modern bikes, they all come with sealed multi-plugs and things like that. Again, maybe speak to your dealer or the importer and see if there's anything that you particularly maybe do need to think about waterproofing. Or I haven't. This will be my third Scottish on a TRS, and I haven't really had to do anything to them. They've been pretty reliable. Most bikes are pretty reliable nowadays. There's just a few things that I would do in terms of sort of not air tightness. Wouldn't be a lot of point air tightening, making the airbox airtight. But trying to keep it free from water is a big subject. There's a couple of things I do, and I think a gas maybe might be similar. But sometimes you ride through a puddle or up a deep river or whatever, and you can get splashes going in sort of inside that part of the frame, which is pretty much straight into the air intake. So what I do there, if I just pop that off and try not to lose a Jubilee clip, hope you'll be able to see that. I've just made a sheet out of a couple of pieces of black duct tape, cut a rough hole in it to the size of the inlet rubber. I can take that off before I lose it, and then just roughly trim it to the sort of profile of the frame, and that just sits in between then the frame and the airbox cover, and stops any water sort of splashes going in. As you can see there, that's pretty much straight into the airbox. I think gas airboxes are maybe the same as this. They're top and bottom, made in two parts and then screwed together. I will be taking that apart. Now this one isn't actually leaking. It's been bang on from day one, but just like I say, as a sort of belt and braces, I will be taking that apart and then making sure that joint is properly re-siliconed. Just because that's the last thing you need is water getting into the airbox. I've had that once, and trust me, it's not what you want. I also add a little sort of flexible flap onto the bottom of the airbox there. Just fills the gap between the bottom of the airbox and the swing arm, and stops a lot of muck and crap getting in around the shock and the linkage and stuff there. I also have this little, I'll show a picture. I also have this little bit of foam which just fills that space between the silencer and the side of the airbox, and again stops muck and crap. In Scotland, I'll probably double up on that with I'll probably duct tape over that joint as well, just to be doubly sure. Let me try and pop that back on there quickly. Airbox lid. Again, this one actually is quite tight fitting, but just as a double precaution, I will also duct tape round the joint there as well, and that just makes sure that nothing that shouldn't get in gets into the airbox. In terms of air filters, I just run the sort of standard oil. I don't do anything different with the air filter, just to make sure I've got 3 or 4 spares there, and I just make sure that they're all always clean, and there's always one in the backpack as well, just in case. That is pretty much that. Any other little modifications? Yeah, I don't have one on the bike at the moment, but I do run a little extender. Again, it's probably just made out of the same stuff as the flap at the back there. Just a little front mudguard extender, and also the plastic that goes around the front exhaust pipe, just to stop any sort of muck and crap building up around that. Quite important on the TRS, because the thermo switch for the fan is on the bottom of the radiator there, so you want to try and keep that as free from anything as possible. I would say always something to bear in mind is if you're coming off a long moor crossing, It's always worthwhile just to check the radiator to make sure that it's not completely blocked up. You know, your radiator guard there at the front. You'll see sometimes you come back towards a road and you'll maybe see vans and a few people standing, and people have brushes and stuff just to clean that out. Quite important just to make sure that the engine's staying cool, especially down the road. That's sort of pretty much. Oh, I forgot to mention the chain tensioner actually. That's another thing to do in your pre-trial preps and keep an eye on every day as well. Pre-trial, just make sure there's not excessive wear. Some of them use a bush, some of them are bearing, but just clean it well and repack it with a good waterproof grease as you would do with the linkage or the headstock. Worthwhile, again, like I say, just keeping an eye on that. So daily checks. First thing I would say, if we start with the wheels again, check your tire pressures. You'll be doing that maybe a couple of times during the day anyway. Just run your fingers around the spokes, make sure you've no loose spokes, things like that. Check the brake pads for wear. Like I say, I've used just one set of brake pads. I don't know whether I'm just not particularly hard on brakes or whatever, but one set lasts me the week, no problem. Spokes, tire pressures, check the tires even just for any cuts or maybe little slices there that could result in a puncture if you hit the tire in that position again. Coolant level, just keep an eye on that. The little sort of tank section, if I spin the bike maybe around there slightly, the little sort of tank section at the top, what you're looking for is the water or the coolant level, sorry, just to be covering the top of the fins in there, and that should be good enough then to keep you going all day. And I would check that. That's absolutely check that every day. Again, just have a quick look around everything. Down tube bolts can vibrate loose. I've also had one of the front bash plate bolts vibrate slightly out. The worst one ever I had was I lost the nut off the bottom of the handlebar clamp halfway around the longest day, and I ended up with a wonky set of handlebars, which wasn't an awful lot of fun. Carburetor, never really had any issues where I've needed to take that out during the week. So I wouldn't really, unless there's something, unless you've got some sort of a carburation issue, you know, the bike's maybe not running right, then yes, take it out. I would have a look at it. But if you're doing the filter every day, and you haven't drowned the bike or whatever, then the carburetor should go all week, really, you know. Again, chain tension, rear spokes, have it check the sprocket bolts, rear sprocket bolts, check the rear disc bolts, check the front disc bolts maybe too. Side stand bolts, they can tend to vibrate a little bit. That's pretty much it. Gearbox oil, some people would change it a couple of times a week. I think I've just changed it once, either on a Wednesday evening or on a Thursday morning. I prefer to do it in the evening when the gearbox oil is warm because it doesn't take as long, it drains much quicker. So that would be really the only thing I would maybe suggest there, is to try and do it in the evening if you can. Other than that, fluid levels, rear brake fluid's easy to check. It's just in through there. Again, it's not anything that, I suppose, unless you have an issue maybe where if you break a brake line or something, if you're really unfortunate. It's not something, if it's topped up at the start of the week, it's probably okay. I mean, they've got little sight glasses, at least the front brake has. So it's something that you you probably really don't need to look at too much or think about too much. That's pretty much it. I hope I haven't forgotten something really obvious there, but I think I've covered pretty much everything. As always, if you've any other ideas or done something maybe different from what I'm doing there and you want to share it, absolutely post it in the comments or send me a message on Facebook or whatever. And I'll put the link to the BVM vlog about the carburetor somewhere here. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.